Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. I hope that wherever you are and whatever you are doing, you are having an amazing Sunday. This is the first Sunday musing that I have done for a really long time in my studio. It's the first live Sunday musing I've done for a really long time. And the reason behind that, well, the reason is kind of threefold. First of all, as you know, my partner has been very sick. She had acute appendicitis. Her appendix had actually ruptured, and she required some quite extensive treatment in the hospital. She had an emergency appendectomy last Monday, and since then we've just been trying to get back on the on an even keel. Secondly, because of that, I have been behind all week with production. Behind me on the wall, just here, you can see a list of all the things that we were supposed to do this week. Normally that list is full up by the weekend, and then I just move stuff up. But as you can see, that list is not full, and it's not full because we've been just so heavily under pressure to get content out the door. And as I said in 10 yesterday, which of course was slightly late, thank you to Kate Walton Elliott for helping out. And thank you to Kate Walton Elliott and her partner for coming over yesterday. They actually helped install 2 air conditioning disconnect boxes on the back of our garage, because our air conditioning is due to be installed this week, or rather our heat pumps are due to be installed this week. They're arriving on Thursday. They're going to be working on installing that for the next part of the next 2 weeks, and then it'll be finished. And so I'm going to be dealing with that in addition to everything else. And the third reason I'm doing this inside is you can't see, but it is now torrential rain outside, and it's the first time in a really long time that it has been such terrible weather on a Sunday that I've either not been able to record it live, or I've had the foresight to actually go out and record it during the week when it was sunny, which is what I normally do. If I know it's going to be bad weather over the weekend, I'll go out and record my Sunday musing early. So a little bit of an update. It wouldn't be a Sunday musing without chickens. Good morning, everybody. I hope that you are all well and joining us. Help us over by going over to patreon.com/transport evolved. We have got some significant medical bills on the way, which means, frankly, that I don't know what we're going to be able to do next. We've had to put 3 different projects on hold that would have required us to spend a significant amount of money. They've all been put on hold. We've had a sponsorship deal fall through. So it's all terrible for us at the moment. And any support that people can give would be gratefully received, because at the end of the day, we can only do as much as we bring in. I will come to the F-150 in a bit. I'll give you an update on that a bit later on, and we'll go from there. But first, let's talk about the Sunday musing portion of this video and the live stream. Chickens are doing well. Chickens are doing fantastically well. They are not very happy about the rain. They did get let out yesterday, although avian flu has now arrived here in Oregon. So we are being really careful about how and when they are going outside and what they're allowed to do outside. They have a very small outdoor space that they're allowed in, as well as a larger enclosed run. So we are trying to keep them inside so that they are not at risk of contracting avian flu, which is not very nice for the chickens, but it's the only way really that we can keep them safe. Garden's doing well. We had 2 severe frosts. I managed to keep the potatoes, the onions, the peas and the beans all protected. The greenhouse is doing fine. Everything is growing so slowly because it's been so freaking cold, which is ironic given the fact that we're installing heat pumps. Let me know in the comments below if you would like us to tell you a bit about the heat pump in a second. I have talked about it before on the channel, but if you'd like me to cover it a bit more, then I will. But first off, let's do the Sunday musing. Then if you're here just to watch the Sunday musing and you don't want to watch me babble, you can disappear and I won't be offended. So Sunday musing. back at the dawn of the modern electric car, not the dawn of the electric car, because that was well over 100 years ago, but back at the dawn of the modern electric car, we really did rely on startups to bring new electric cars to market. Legacy automakers were not interested in making anything, not even trying to make. They just weren't interested in making vehicles. And so what we saw was a real upsurge in the number of startups that were wanting to bring compelling electric vehicles to market. Of course, Tesla was one such company. Tesla survived, I would argue, Tesla has become a mainstream automaker in some ways in terms of a small volume automaker, but it has become a mainstream automaker. Sure, it's not at the level of some of the global automakers who are making millions upon millions upon millions of cars a year, but Tesla's certainly punching well above its weight now. And these car companies, these startups, Tesla was one that succeeded. Rivian so far seems to be doing okay. I know some people in comments this week have said, well, Rivian's doing terribly. How can you be supportive of Rivian? And the reality is that Rivian is producing about the same number of vehicles today as Tesla did in its first couple of quarters back in 2012. So we've got to be cognizant of the fact that the startup today is where Tesla was when it was a startup 10 years ago now. It is, we've seen lots of other startups, as someone said, back in the 1970s. We saw some electric cars coming off the production line. Again, small numbers of what I would call almost boutique electric cars. The city car isn't a good example of that. And then these little startups, they did fine. They did okay. They kept producing cars, and there were enough people to buy them that they kept on succeeding, at least for a limited period of time. But if you look back through history, there have been hundreds upon hundreds of car companies that have come and gone. Coda comes to mind. They even started to produce electric cars and ship them, but they were beset with problems over the years. They had a product that was overpriced for what it offered. It couldn't compete with mainstream electric cars like the Nissan Leaf, and so ultimately it folded, and that's where it ended up. And so today, I want to tell you that I think the days of the EV startup are numbered. There are significant numbers of EV startups that are now in that final stage of pre-production or production intent or production validation, or maybe in final stages of prototyping, so maybe a little bit further back, who are all eager to bring new electric vehicles to market. Some of them are fairly well known. In the US, a large number of them have joined the stock market via a reverse merger. And we talked about one of them this week, Lordstown. We talked about another couple this week in the show. Canoe was another one. Someone saying Lucid might be one. Lucid, I think I think Lucid will be fine, and I'll explain the reason why I think Lucid will be fine later in the show. I'm talking about cars that are aimed at more mainstream buyers, not cars that are aimed at really high-end market, because I think when you get to a car that is worth more than $180,000, $200,000, you start getting into that weird world where the vehicles are bespoke and they're almost produced on a bespoke basis, and people are buying them for the cachet, for the name, for the fact that this is a unique and different vehicle, as opposed to this is a vehicle I'm going to go down the shop and buy a bag of crisps with, or chips to you Americans who are watching. Thank you very much, Gary. That's very kind of you. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work yourself. Thank you very much. That is very much appreciated because of everything that is going on. I'm looking at all the obligations we have, and I'm looking and going, I have no idea what the next few months will hold. But if you would like to join Transport Evolved and help Transport Evolved, you can go to patreon.com/Transport Evolved. We currently have 256 Patreon supporters. Let's see if we can get that up to 1,275 by the end of this live stream. Back to my Sunday musing. So we've got all of these cool startups over the years. Some of them have succeeded and some haven't. The majority haven't. But now we're at a turning point. We're starting to see mainstream automakers actually jump in and produce compelling electric cars that are exciting, that are backed up by a dealer network, that are backed up by economies of scale, that are maybe backed up by the automaker taking a risk on, lowering the purchase price of that vehicle with the expectation that they're going to be able to grab enough of a market share to significantly lower the cost in the long term. And I can't help but think that now mainstream automakers are at least taking electric vehicles seriously. Some are not, I will grant you, that the days of the startups are kind of numbered. We talked about we talked about Lordstown this week, and we got a lot of kickback from Lordstown. Interestingly, I think there were a lot of Lordstown fanboys who really were upset, and fangirls who were upset that we were saying what we said about Lordstown. But what I said in that video, I think holds true of a lot of startups, that while mainstream automakers were ignoring electric vehicles, it was open season. Anything went as long as it was electric. People were willing to support it. But now electric vehicles are becoming mainstream. And there's another issue, which I'll come to in a second. Now electric vehicles are becoming mainstream, and mainstream buyers are starting to transition, either because they know they're going to have to in the next 10 years, as is in Europe, or because gas prices are really expensive and they just want to drive something more affordable. They are going to tend towards brands that they know, brands that they are familiar with. Tesla is going to be just fine because Tesla is enough of an established brand that people recognize electric cars. They recognize the Tesla brand, rightly so, as being a leader in the space, and go, okay, so if I want an electric car, maybe I'll go with a Tesla, or maybe they will go with another vehicle from another well-known brand. They might be a Volkswagen customer, and they come into the dealership and they have, their mid-size crossover, and they're like, this car is only getting 30, 40 miles to the gallon, or 20 even, depending on which country you're in. I want something else. And they look at the ID4, and it might not be the most exciting electric vehicle on the market, and by golly, it's not, but it is one of the most perfunctory vehicles, and it does the job and it gets the job done. And at the end of the day, a lot of people just want to get from A to B. And that's really why I think the days of the EV startup are numbered. Now, there are a couple of startups I think will be okay. One of them being Archimoto, because it's outside of what other companies are offering. And this is kind of the caveat. If a company is producing a product that is unlike any other product in the marketplace, they still have potential to be protected by the bubble of uniqueness. Let's call it that, the bubble of uniqueness. The same is true for Aptera. Aptera has a bubble of uniqueness around it, has a USP, a vehicle, a solar vehicle that can charge 40 miles per day in best case scenarios, that you can buy, that it is nothing like anything else. And I think Aptera and Archimoto are going to be protected by that uniqueness bubble, the fact that nobody else is doing it. Nick, thank you so much. If Nick is watching, thank you so much for becoming a Patreon. Nick is the latest new patron for Transport Evolved. £1. Good job. Thank you so much. If everybody who watched this gave £1, we would be able to do so much more with the channel. We have between, on a bad month, 400,000, on a good month, 1 million people watching the channel. If everybody gave £1 or $1 or whatever their local currency was, or equivalent, we would do so much more as a channel. We'd be able to pay everybody, instead of paying them a living wage, we would be able to pay them what they're worth, because I think they're all worth more. I would be able to pay myself, and I wouldn't be fretting about medical bills, frankly. And unlike a lot of YouTube channels, we don't take money from car companies. We don't do sponsorships from companies that we cover, because that would be a conflict of interest. All right. Steve says, I think being a startup in a space is much more difficult if you have to produce a physical product. There's a whole layer of physical supply chain and manufacturing that's really hard. And I think that's the other thing to bring in here, Steve. And I think you're totally right. When you have a startup that is making a unique product in a marketplace that is new, where the big boys, in inverted commas, are not interested, there's an element of flexibility that you can bring. You can work with partners, you can get supply chains. Maybe it might be difficult because you're not a big company, but you're actually able to negotiate for stuff. But when the big brands come to play, they are the 800-pound gorillas who are coming into the room. They can outbid you on everything, parts. They can outbid you on staff salaries. They can outbid you on space. And in the EV world, when we have battery supply chain restrictions, when we have raw material supply restrictions, the companies with the biggest wallets are the ones that are going to dominate. And I think Tesla was very clever in securing its supply chain before these became major issues, because it's insulated itself from a lot of that. Most startups have the idea of becoming mainstream eventually if they can ride it out. And I think, like I said, I think one of the reasons why Aptera and Archimoto are going to be insulated from that is because they're offering products that are completely different. They're both offering three-wheel vehicles. One is kind of a motorcycle, a safer version of a motorcycle, which is fun, which can be a delivery vehicle, which can be an emergency vehicle. I think Archimoto's key point is that it's developed this unique platform that can be transformed into so many different things, a pickup truck, emergency response vehicle, even a fire truck, delivery vehicle, a tour vehicle, camera vehicle. If we had unlimited funds, we would buy an Archimoto Cameo, because it would be the best filming vehicle for us to use. It would just be the most amazing vehicle, because we could get so much filmed as we were out and about. Thank you also to Jean for becoming the latest Patreon supporter. Thank you so much, Jean. You rock. Thank you, Art, for joining. That's a very cute dog there. Dogs are awesome. I do love my dogs. And also, thanks very much to Oget for your super sticker. Thank you so much. It is awesome to have you guys all out there. You're not convinced. Art says you're the best out there, but I'm not convinced about Archimoto and Aptera. Let me see if I can rephrase it. So Archimoto and Aptera have both invented feels like the wrong word. They figured out where they fit in a market by identifying a need for something that people didn't realize they needed, and now there is definitely a need for them in certain specific use case scenarios. And with Archimoto, it's all of those applications where a traditional four-wheeled vehicle would not fit, where a traditional four-wheeled vehicle would be too big, where there might be issues with weight restrictions, where there might be maneuverability restrictions. With Aptera, it really is that we are the most efficient vehicle. We can travel the longest distance using the least amount of energy. And in a country like the United States, I think there's definitely a demand for a vehicle that can travel a long way. In my head, and I know this sounds a little bit weird, in my head, there's kind of this little voice that says, well, what if you had this solar electric vehicle that would be effectively your survivalist vehicle, the vehicle you could travel around in if you absolutely had to. If the world went to pot, you could still travel around in that vehicle because it could still recharge itself, etc., etc. Putting an R1T size pack to have 1,000-mile range for marketing headlines is counter to Aptera's unique advantage. Do you mean putting a battery pack that is so large in the Aptera? Because I think most people are probably going to go for the 400 or 600-mile variant. I don't think very many people are going to go for the 1,000-mile variant. Thank you, Sally Barber. And thank you, John. I tried to keep my Patreon bill down, but your channel provides a lot of really good journalism, so I'm donating here. Thank you very much, John. I've been wondering how many of the startups will succeed. Yeah, I think that is the challenge, right? I think Fiskar is another one of those startups. It's just in that kind of space. I also have, unlike a lot of people out there who seem to think that, oh, thank you to our latest Patreon supporter who just came in. We're just bringing in the Patreon supporters today. Quinton D. Bunton, thank you very much for becoming our latest Patreon supporter. You rock. Thank you so much. We are growing rapidly today, which is what we need. Because I'm not sure what the next couple of months is gonna hold. I don't want to. I'll come back to obviously discussion of what's going on with the startups, but I just want to give you kind of a bit of a side eye into what's going on right now. So we've got 1,259 Patreon supporters now. That is fantastic. We've got 15 more that we would like to get before the end of this live stream. If we can go higher, great. Honestly, I would like to increase our Patreon support by about 3% of what it currently is. That would make it much easier for me to carry on doing things. Let's pause discussion of startups and I'll tell you where we're at right now. So I am personally running on empty. I am exhausted. I'll lift up my glasses so you can see. Big old bags. Part of that is because I had eye operations when I was a kid, and I always have big bags under my eyes, but they're certainly worse now than they were a couple of weeks ago. My partner had a planned medical procedure last Friday in a local clinic, and that was totally planned, and that was why 10 last week was a bit weird. Totally planned procedure, and everything was prepared for. Nothing bad happened at that procedure. In fact, good test results came back. Everything's good. But then 2 days later, she started to complain of really bad stomach pains, and her stomach started to, basically get bigger, and she developed acute appendicitis, and she didn't want to go to the emergency room last Sunday because in America, everything is really expensive when it comes to health, even if you have good health insurance, which we do. Monday morning, she woke me up at like 4:30 and said, I think I really do need to go, because she'd been pushing back against me going, I need to get to the hospital. And on Monday morning, she was like, I think it's time. So we took her to the hospital. We drove not to the local emergency room, nor the nearest emergency room, but actually the emergency room that's furthest away from us, because it has the best reputation. I had fears that it was something involving the procedure she'd had earlier in the week. So I wanted to make sure she went to a good place. They gave her a CT scan, and they're like, yep, you have acute appendicitis. You need to have this removed. When we had when she had the surgery, it was very light on Monday evening, first thing Tuesday morning. So I kept my phone on. They rang me, said she's going into surgery about midnight. And then they rang me again at 3 a.m. to say she's out. And then they rang me again at 5 or 4 to tell me that she was on the ward. She had very, very, very bad. She'd ruptured and she had a bad infection. And so she was on very strong painkillers and very strong antibiotics all week. She was discharged on Thursday. She came home Thursday evening. Friday, Saturday have been very tiring, stressful days for everybody. And she's a lot better today, but she's still in a lot of pain. What does that mean for me and the channel and everything else? At the moment, it means that everything's kind of on hold until we know how much the insurance is going to be. Now we have a good insurance policy, but for those who don't know, in America, you have to pay a certain amount out of pocket. You just have to pay and hand over money, and then your insurance company will pay a bit of it and you have to pay a bit of it up to a certain amount. And once you've reached that amount, the insurance company pays everything. But the likelihood is that the out of pocket and the maximum out of pocket, we're just going to have to hand over a hunk of change, a hunk of cash, which is probably more than probably more money than we bring in to the company in a month. Let's just leave it at that. And so there were a couple of projects that we had on that we were planning to do. The Ford F-150, we were planning on doing that. There was an install of an electrical system here that we were going to review. We got the units on review, but we were going to have to pay for the install. That's on hold. We were going to install the heat pumps. That is not on hold because we'd already signed the contracts a month and a half ago to have that installed. So we're now having to pay. The heat pumps are going to happen come hell or high water, although it's going to be difficult installing those while, my wife is sick. But that's the heat pumps are going to happen regardless. So we're definitely going to have to make sure that we can pay for those. But the F-150 Lightning is currently unknown. I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford it. We're definitely not going to be able to afford to do this other integration video. And I kind of reached out to the folks who were going to provide us with the review unit and went, I'm really sorry, we're going to have to push back. And they're very understanding. Hopefully we're going to be able to do that at a later date. Also, because I don't know what's going to happen with the F-150, I don't know what's going to happen with we want to get the home integration kit so we could show you guys what it was like and what the process was and how it was like living with a truck that could power our house, because we have regular power cuts up here. We had one on Tuesday night for an hour and a half, 2 hours. It knocked out all of our computer systems. So it's one of my jobs today is to get the UPS configured properly for the server. But I don't know what the future holds, and it's stressful and scary. So I'm just being really, flat out honest with you guys about it. And probably I'm not going to be making any trips for a while as well, because I want to stay at home and make sure my wife gets properly recovered. So that's why we're kind of really pushing Patreon at the moment, because I haven't paid myself since November last year, sorry. And that would be really useful for me to be able to do that. And then we'd be able to do some other stuff on the side. Everybody else is doing fine at the company. I can pay everybody. I just can't pay myself. And that's the difference. All right. So I'm going to have a bit of drink. All right. What do you think about Fiskar and their USP, i.e. flexi lease and low entry price? It'll work in some markets, but I don't see it working. You see, we creatures are kind of weird about leasing, right? Recently, so Renault was kind of one of the first companies to go, we are going to give you a car, you buy the car and then you lease the battery. Didn't prove popular. People didn't really like it. I had a Renault Twizy. I had one payment every month for the finance and one payment every month for the battery. And I didn't like it because I knew if I went over my mileage allocation, then I was going to have to adjust it and pay more money. I just wanted to have one payment, really. The other thing to bear in mind is that, Niro, however you want to pronounce it in China, is talking about letting people switch from having a battery lease where they rent the battery to going to something where they buy the battery outright. It seems to be what people want to do. We like to know that the thing we have is ours. Basically, that is as close as it gets. Please forgive me 1 second. I just need to take my hoodie off because it's kind of hot in here. Thank you for that. And I managed to make my hair all a mess in the process. Um, so yeah, I think that leasing, renting is going to be difficult for a lot of people. And I think that the challenge here is that a lot of people do not like the idea of being beholden to a company. I mean, just think about, some people do it with their mobile phones, but at the end of the day, if you lease your mobile phone on a 2-month or 2-year contract. At the end of 2 years, you get to hand this back, or you get to keep it. Normally, you get to keep it, or you get to hand it back and get a new one, right? So this phone, I hadn't bought a new Apple phone for a really long time. And then last year, I was like, you know what? My phone's really old. It's having issues with the battery. I'm going to buy a new one. And so I bought this on Apple's finance package. So I'm still paying for this. It will be mine in about a year's time. But I don't think I would want to lease it. Ahmed, thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Very, very kind of you. I think my email just pinged again. No, it didn't. That's good. So if you want to become a supporter of the channel, please know that you can do that by going to patreon.com/transport evolved. Mileage of the Fiskar lease is 30,000 miles per year. The battery isn't leased separately. True, but 30,000 miles per year, I would say, is at the lower end of what a lot of people want. Many people don't do 15, 20, 25, 30,000 miles per year. But I think people still want to have the vehicle as theirs. And one of the reasons is damage, right? So when I was a lot younger and a lot prettier and maybe a lot less wise, we had a Smart for 2. The last time we had a really bad time in my world. It was 2007, 2008. We had just purchased a house. I don't think I've ever told you this story. 2007, my wife Kate and I had a house. We were leasing an apartment that was constantly flooding. It was terrible. The landlord was horrible. Pepper, our border collie, our original border collie, was very young. He needed more space. We were trying to find a place that would accept dogs. And we came across this house in a village just north of Bristol. I apologize that our stream is having lags. The weather is really causing problems right now. We're out in the country, in the middle of nowhere, and so our internet connection gets very bad when the weather gets bad because it's Wi-Fi. It's not cable. It's literally a Wi-Fi thing that beams down the valley. So I'm very sorry about that. So where was I? Right. So we were looking for a house, and we went to look for a house that would accept dogs, and we found this address, and it was a nice house, and I think they wanted I want to say they wanted $1,200. Sorry, £1,200, so £1,200 a month rent. Okay, and next door was on the market. So the two houses next door to each other, they were in a terrace. The one that was end of terrace was for sale, and the one next to it was for rent. And we did some maths, and we discovered that even though we didn't have a deposit, back at the time, we could buy the house with a 105% mortgage, which was legal back then. We could buy the house, and it was cheaper to buy the house than it was to rent the house next door. And the house we bought actually had 2 extra rooms because it had a conservatory and it also had a converted garage, which became the original Transport Evolved studio, the broom closet. If you are a fan, an OG TE fan, you will remember the broom closet. It was tiny. I could literally touch the wall. as I turned around. So when we bought that house in 2007, literally 2 or 3 days before Northern Rock went under in the UK. Big mortgage lender went bust. We closed just in time. Had we been a couple of days later to close, we may not have got the mortgage. We didn't default or anything. We paid our mortgage, but my wife had a job in Bristol, and she was made redundant. And she had a Toyota Prius at the time, and we were paying a significant amount of money for the Prius on a finance package, which is why we're getting to the leasing. Okay, I promise. And in order for us to still have transport and get around, I basically very strongly said to my wife, hey, we've got to get rid of your Prius. It's a great car. I love it too, but we need something that's cheaper. So instead of paying several hundred pounds a month, let's find a car that is cheaper. And we found a Smart for Two diesel car. And at the time, Mercedes was doing like £100 a month rental or lease. £100 a month. It was diesel. It had a really high diesel miles per gallon, so we bought that or leased it for 2 years. And at the end of the whole lease period, we handed the car back, and they dinged us. Oh boy, how did they ding us? It might have been because it was Mercedes-Benz. It might have been because it was a lease. I don't know. But we were dinged heavily. We, I think, ended up paying, I think it was like £2,000 over at the end of our lease, and we hadn't even gone over mileage. That was just for things like, oh, there's a scratch mark here that's more than a 10 pence piece in diameter, and this bit of plastic is faded because it's been sat in the sun too long or whatever. And we were dinged, really dinged for it. And after that point, I'm like, I don't really want to lease again. And when I did end up leasing, which we did with Artemis, the Bolt, I said at the time that would be my last lease. I only did it because I desperately needed a car that I could travel long distance in. We had a child who was very ill and needed regular medical treatment. I've never talked about this, but back in 2017, 2018, 2019, one of my children was very sick and required lots of hospitalization. And we were traveling backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards to different parts of Oregon. And we needed a longer distance car. We didn't want to go back to gas, which is why we did electric with the Bolt. I got a really good deal on it. But when we came to the end of the lease, we had no other option, but we could have bought out the lease, which is what we decided to, but we decided that we didn't want to hand it back because we knew my car was well over its mileage, and also I didn't want to have to go through all of those payments again. I ended up taking it on the chin, and now we've got a much higher outstanding amount on the car than if we'd have just handed it back. But, you know, there we go. Elon is slowing. I think you mean Elon is slowing my connection. Yeah, Elon is turned off right now. We have 2 connections. Thank you very much to the wonderful people who have just supported the show. SD, that could be Snoop Dogg, or it could be Scooby-Doo. I'm going to choose Scooby-Doo. Thank you, Scooby-Doo. You are wonderful. And we know where you are now as well. So that's good. $1,500 per month. Yeah, I think that was for the house. Yeah, it was. This is 2007 as well. Every little scratch gets marked. Those guys had good lighting and a keen eye. One of the primary reasons my employees don't lease the company cars. Yeah, it's a nightmare. Now, if you ever have to hand a car back at the end of lease, I highly recommend you take your car to a detailing specialist where they'll do paint correction and fixes. So when we emigrated from the UK to the US, my wife had a 2013 Chevrolet Volt. That was her main car. She'd owned it for 2 years, and she wanted to get the absolute maximum amount of money for that car she possibly could. So we went to a local paint specialist, and we paid to have it detailed professionally, and we paid to have it professionally do all the scratch removal and everything, the paint correction. I think we ended up paying like £700 for it, but then we ended up getting an extra £2,000 for the car when we sold it. So just bear that in mind. Great for brand loyalty. Sarcasm, yes. Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo, we love you. Yes, we do. Samurai Doge. Yeah. Samurai Doge. Yeah, that would work. That would also work. I just want to say thank you very much to Zoom and Aura, also Laura, for becoming our latest Patreon supporters. You rock. That means we now have 1,261 Patreon supporters. Thank you, everybody, for supporting the channel. It really does mean a lot to me and to everybody else on the team. Sorry, 60. I think someone may have actually unsubbed. Which is unfortunate. But thank you to everybody who is supporting the channel. Or either that or I can't do maths. But maybe somebody watching right now will become the 1,261st Patreon supporter. All right. That's why we have the idea. That's why we have the approach to leasing that we do. Someone is watching this, I think, on Take Two, by the way, because someone was saying, is there a secret chat? I can see a chat. If you go over to Transport Evolved, if you go over to youtube.com/Transport Evolved and watch on the main channel, I suspect that's where the majority of people chatting are coming from, just so that you know. Okay, so let's go back to the doomed startups. I think there's an interesting one here from Christopher saying, why do they need to be doomed? It's a great disservice to the EV world for one EV manufacturer to be the only one. I'm never calling for one EV manufacturer to be the only one, Christopher. God forbid. No. But I think that most startups are doomed now because the mainstream automakers are coming into play. And if the mainstream automakers are taking up all the talent, all of the batteries, all of the resources, and they're building compelling vehicles that they can produce for less than a lot of startups, there's no competition. Let's look back at Coda, right? So Coda made a vehicle that offered on paper less impressive specs than the Nissan Leaf at the time. Maybe a little longer range, but the rest of it was kind of not as good. A much higher sticker price for a start. And the reason why I think Coda failed was because Nissan had launched the Leaf. The Leaf offered more practicality than the Coda. It had rapid charging. The Coda did not. It offered a form factor that people were more familiar with. It offered it from a brand that people knew. And it offered it in a way that people were more likely to go into a dealership and go, oh, that's an interesting car. What is it? It's a Leaf. Oh, let's take it for a spin. The other thing to bear in mind is, depends on your definition of doomed. They might be doomed to be bought by one big auto and assimilated if they're good enough. We'll come back. We'll come back to that in a second. Can I stream more than on one channel at once? Yes, I can. That's how we're doing this. We're using a streaming platform. We're actually streaming on Facebook as well. So the point is, and I think Steve's saying it this, mainstream automakers are also very practical at marketing and sales than most startups they can manage, except possibly in the legal weed industry. That's true. The legal weed industry is weird. But we can look at all of these cool startups that are coming along that are creating cool, compelling vehicles. If they have cool, compelling product that nobody else has, then yeah, they have a chance, which is why I was singling out Aptera and Arcimoto as being companies that I think are going to do great. But I'm not convinced that Fiskar has a USP. I'm not convinced that Lordstown has a USP. Rivian currently does have a USP because nobody else is making a lifestyle electric pickup truck. Nobody, right? If you want a lifestyle electric pickup, you go with a Rivian. Rivian is a vehicle that a lot of Tesla people are going to because they can already buy a Rivian. They can't buy a Cybertruck yet. I think Cybertruck's going to be fine. Again, because Cybertruck is going to be unlike anything else on the market. It's a weird looking thing. It's going to have all of Tesla's legendary technology in it, and people will go to Tesla because of the brand, right? They won't necessarily go to Tesla because they think necessarily that it has something that other companies don't have, but it's because it's Tesla. But Tesla is no longer a startup. Tesla is a mainstream automaker. Lordstown doesn't have a USP. Not really. Not really. And Lordstown is being cross-shopped against now by the Ford F-150 Lightning. Rivian is on its own because it's a lifestyle truck. The Hummer H1 is on its own. Or the Hummer EV, sorry. The Hummer EV is on its own because there is no other super truck at the moment on sale that offers what the Hummer does. I don't think, we don't have crab steer on any other electric truck that's currently available. We don't have the sheer ridiculous performance figures yet. And if you've got a wad of cash, you're probably going to be okay with the sticker price. Someone was asking what USP, unique selling point. Yeah. Do you think that maybe vehicles subscription will make a comeback now? I think it will in certain markets, but again, I think it's like I was saying earlier. I don't know if you saw the stream earlier on. I do not believe that people want to subscribe to cars. It's been something that the auto industry has been trying to do for 20 years. Just think about that. We're talking about subscription models for cars for more than 20 years, and it's still not really caught on. Leasing, yes. Volvo's subscription model might work because Volvo is an established brand. People know the brand, and that's different to going with a brand new company who doesn't have a dealer network, who doesn't yet have a reputation. What about the Moke and the Micro Lino? So the Moke is going to have a very small market segment. It's going to be your resort car for your golf clubs, for your beach resorts in Florida, in California, in Mediterranean Europe. And I think the Microlino, again, I think that's going to be popular in cities. Is it going to replace a mainstream automaker yet? No, I don't believe so. I just don't believe the finances of those vehicles, the sticker prices of those vehicles are yet in that point. And again, I think Arcimoto is still too expensive for a lot of people, but Arcimoto is targeting a much more affordable sticker price. It's worked with Sandy Munro to nail down the costs and the production costs. And I think that's really going to help people in certain markets do that. Thank you very much to, I think that was Doug, for becoming our Dougum. Dougum, you are in fact our 1,262nd Patreon supporter. There was another Patreon supporter, I think Ed, also just joined up. So thank you very much, everybody. Tesla is to EVs what Apple is to cell phones. Absolutely, 10 lawn gnomes. I think you are totally right with that. And I think that, sorry, that was a big truck. You can see why I wasn't doing the Sunday musing outside now, because it's peeing it down with rain. I think that people go with Tesla because it's for the brand image. It's for, people buy what is familiar and what they like. Please excuse me while I have more Fentmans. I try not to drink a lot of soda, but when I do, I have Curiosity Cola. It's very nice. It's made in a glass bottle. It's not made by a massive multinational. And I can recycle the glass bottles and be plastic free. Production costs. You can make cheap, giant, reusable molds with basic materials, cement and stuff. You can, if you're doing, new production techniques like carbon fiber. But I mean, I think there are still some challenges. And I think the biggest two are production costs and reputation. if somebody doesn't know a company, they are not going to spend a lot of money on it, especially if they can buy something from a rival firm for less. I mean, that really is where it comes from, right? Someone was talking about, Apple and Apple products and Apple brand and how Tesla, feels a little bit like Apple. I don't like where Apple is going as a company with the right to repair, the issues it has with the right to repair, the new massive repair kit that you have to rent, and if you do the repair yourself, it's as expensive as other things, and but I've kind of got myself trapped in the Apple ecosystem because when I grew up in a family with no car and no computers. And when I got my first computer at music college, it was an old Atari that I'd inherited from my sister who had given me her one. I used to write and had a dot matrix printer, and this was 1999, 2000. But then I started using computers at music college, and they were Apples, and so I used to make money buying really old Apple Macs from this local Hasidic gentleman who owned a bric-a-brac store in North London, and I can't remember, Stamford Hill, and I used to buy those Macs from him, and I would fix them up and flog them to my fellow music students. So I kind of got into Apple when it was uncool. The iMac had just come out when I started doing that, but I kind of then over the years bought software, invested in the ecosystem, and now it's got to the point where I can't afford to leave the Apple ecosystem because I literally have thousands of dollars of production software for things like audio. It's why our audio sounds so good. It's not me, it's the software we use. But I think that I'm not the only one when it comes to Apple. And I think that a lot of people are like that with Tesla. They get into the Tesla ecosystem. They've got a Powerwall. They've got a Tesla charging station, and everything just works for them. They've got one app. Everything is very homogenized. They don't have to worry about it. But I think there are also a lot of people who are like, I want to have an experience that I trust from another brand, or maybe Tesla. I will go and buy a vehicle made by this company that I know and I trust, as opposed to a startup I haven't even heard of. And I think it will be a regional thing. I think in America, we're going to see fewer startups than we will in China and Europe. So in China, I think BYD is still doing very well. No, someone asked earlier if you can't buy BYD in the US unless you buy a bus. You can buy buses and trucks, but that's it. I'd love other companies making EVs. I don't find Tesla's models are exciting. I heard about Estonia's new EV. I'd buy it. Yeah. What I look for in an EV is a very practical vehicle that has decent performance and is not so fancy that I feel uncomfortable behind the wheel. Certain electric vehicles I drive feel, what's the word? Certain electric vehicles that I drive just feel too fancy. Does that make sense? They just feel too fancy. And I want an electric vehicle that does the job, gets the job done. I can fix easily myself if I need to. If I have the skills to do that, I can. Or I can send it to a garage of my choosing to get it fixed. And that's one of the reasons why we don't have a Tesla, is because we can't do that. We're beholden to Tesla for repair. And unlike the Apple world, where it is kind of easy to hack your Mac, right? To modify things, whether it's software or finding loopholes. It's harder to do that in a Tesla. You still can do it. You can go the whole rich rebuilds or electrified garage route, but then you lock yourself out of things like charging and whatnot. I used to drive the 149 through Stamford Hill, but before my time. So I used to live in Seven Sisters from 1999 through until 2004, and then I moved up to Lincolnshire. Mac E and F-150 Lightning. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, ultimately, Kate really wanted to get a Mark E, and we decided not to for financial reasons earlier this year. we decided to get the F-150 Lightning, but now I don't know what we're going to do about that. The F-150 Lightning, I guess you guys, I'll fill you in on the F-150 Lightning. So we have a car. We have a truck. It has been made. If we have a vehicle that we buy, if that F-150 actually comes to our house and we buy it, it will be called Aptera Tal. That is the name of the new car. If it actually happens, the car will be called Aptera Tal. Aptera Tal is a really awesome character from Star Trek Discovery, and it is awesome, and I love that series and the character. They are amazing, and they are played by a wonderful actor called Blue DeBarrio, and so I am naming my truck, if I get it, Aptera Tal. However, we still haven't decided if we're going to do it yet. Ford's finance deals for the F-150 Lightning are not good. The interest rates are pretty darned high. I don't want to go through Ford, so it really does depend on how we can finance it going forwards, and the amount of money that it is might make it cost prohibitive in light of everything else that's been going on in the future. Do not like Star Trek. Do not watch Star Trek Discovery, and do not like it. That's your prerogative, Carls. That's totally your prerogative, dude. Or I'm just assumed your gender. I apologize. It's totally your thing. You do not have to watch it and like it. I love it. I think there's a really cool thing. Why wouldn't I get the Lightning? Okay, so let's rewind. For those who don't know, my partner Kate, not the Kate that you see on the videos. That's a different Kate. To just be clear, so the British Kate, I am not married to. They are not my partner. I am married to a different Kate. My partner, Kate, is American. She has an American accent. She is very sick right now. She was admitted to hospital on Monday last week with acute appendicitis. Her appendix ruptured. It required some pretty swift surgery and nearly a week in hospital. So we are not sure how much the bill is going to be, and we have insurance. But even though we have insurance, it's basically going to clear out all of our savings to pay for this procedure, possibly more. So it was going to be the deposit on the truck, basically. I can't just magic money out of nowhere, and we have had a couple of sponsorships not work out in the last couple of weeks, so a couple of months. But thank you to Jim for becoming our latest Patreon supporter. You rock, Jim. Thank you very much. And so there we are. That is where we're at. John Aldrich says, I test drove a Jaguar I-Pace once. It was like an Erlanger cockpit, hundreds of buttons and switches. Too much trouble to learn. You know, I think that a lot of people just do want a very functional vehicle. I think it was one of the reasons why the F-150 Lightning is going to be so popular, is because the entry-level model, the Ford F-150 Lightning Pro, the XLT, and I think the entry-level Lariat all have a smaller 12-inch landscape screen. If you get behind the wheel of it, it's still got a gear shifter. All of the controls are where you expect them to be, and it just works like a regular truck. It's only the Lariat extended range and the high end one where the you know, you've got the Mustang Marquis style dashboard, and I think things are, you know, I think a lot of people are put off by big touchscreens and whatnot. I think that's fairly common. Get well soon, Kate. Yeah, get well soon indeed. I'm gonna have to go check up on her in a minute and give her some food. How long was her appendix ruptured before surgery? We do not know. However, it was pretty bad. The doctors were very kind of honest with us about that. It was kind of nasty. Went through the same thing, says Tom, but thank you for the NHS. Yeah, the NHS is good. There are reasons why we don't live in the UK anymore, and the NHS is not one of them. Luckily, it was a repairable health concern. Yeah, exactly. I once had appendicitis. When I was 17, almost died from a penicillin IV. Nasty stuff. Yeah, we're all allergic to penicillin too. It's kind of funny because I found out the other day that 3 of the team at Transport Evolved, or one of the team, and myself and my partner have all had appendicitis. So it's kind of the appendix-free club at the house on a Monday or on a weekday when Michael is here. So that is why the F-150 may not happen. And I just want to be completely honest with you about it, because I know some people are going to be, well, why didn't you get it? There's a lot of potential for us to make a lot of content. So I really am keeping my fingers crossed that the bill is not going to be as big as we think, and that we're going to be able to get the truck, and we'll trade in the bolt, one of the bolts, for the truck. And it will make doing things like Fully Charged Live a lot better. But we are, we will only know really at the end of the day when we get the bill. And we may have to just make a call because the truck may arrive. I've been told the truck is due in June. So hopefully the truck will arrive after the medical bill, and then we will know more. Up to that point, who could say? Who could say? It's unfortunately a side effect of living in the United States, right? It's one of those things. I'm really surprised that True Tech didn't weigh in on the Star Trek banter given the profile picture. Yes, that's the Enterprise D. Thank goodness for free healthcare we have here in Denmark. Yeah. The F-150 looks nice, but it ain't cheap as chips, especially decked out. Thank you, Mark Hadley. Thank you for your adjustment to your Patreon support. You are an absolute star. Thank you very much. There's still a few more minutes. Can we get up to our 1,275 Patreon supporters? Can we do that? Can the F-150 be delayed? Or is it take it or lose your spot? It is pretty much take it or lose a spot. It's been made. The truck that I hope will be known as Aptera Tal has been made. Tom, thank you very much for your generous donation there. I appreciate that. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Keep being awesome yourself. Do I like the new Star Trek series? Do you mean Strange New Worlds? We've seen one, because obviously we've been busy this week. What with stuff? Yeah. I love all of Star Trek. I enjoyed Picard. I know lots of people who didn't, but I really liked Picard. I really liked the way that Picard commented on some of the social issues that have been going on lately. Is Aptera blue? Aptera is blue. That's one of the reasons why I chose Aptera. So Aptera Tal is played by Blue DeBarrio, and so Aptera is blue. So that's the other reason. And the life, I think the number plate, if we get the truck, which is very much in the air, if we do actually end up buying the truck, we will be making a host of content for the channel. I've been trying to get other YouTubers to join me for some collaborations, and I suck at asking people to join me and work with me on content for some reason. I don't know if it's just I just don't ask well or what, but I would really love to work with a couple of different content creators, including one local content creator that I reached out to, and I haven't heard anything back yet. And I'm like, I would really like to work with them on the truck and on a project involving the truck. If Jim Farley gave you a credit of 90,000, would you get 1 platinum F-150 Lightning or 2 Pro Lightnings? So we are getting a Lariat. We're getting the Lariat extended range. That's the vehicle we spec'd. We spec'd it that way because we wanted an extended range truck. And if you buy the XLT extended range, it's not that more affordable than the Lariat extended range. But if you go with a Lariat extended range, you get Blue Cruise, which when we have to drive long distances to trips is a good thing. And our goal is to fly less and drive more. So what world or show is Aptera Tal from? So without spoiling the storyline, Aptera Tal is in Discovery. Adiratal is the first, I believe, the first, is it the first? Not the first human, but the first, I believe they're the first permanent human Trill symbiont joining. Does that make sense? If you know Star Trek, you should know what I'm talking about. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. Nikki teaming up with Bjorn Nyland for a banana box test on the F-150. I would love to do that. That'd be fun. Yeah, that's the reason we got that truck. And now if I had a credit and I was just buying a truck for myself, I really wish that we could have bought the Pro extended range. I would have really enjoyed that. But buying it as an independent business is kind of difficult. Or Fly Electric, get story of the first pilot to gain then license flying all electric last week. Send me that link if that is a story I missed. I have a couple of potential collaborations actually, to go. What is the deposit amount required to reserve an F-150? The F-150 you require, I think we've put, want to say we've paid $1,000 so far. It's refundable. But it's been built, so we can't then turn around and go, no. We'd have to go back to the back of the queue, and then we would have an even longer. Thank you, Neil, for your kind donation over at patreon.com/transport evolved. So that's where we're doing. And the other thing that I would like us to do with the truck is we are going to help someone get, if we do get the truck, we're going to help someone get an internal combustion engine car that they are getting rid of from Seattle all the way back to to Colorado. And they are, I think the car is going to be broken down at that point. So it's kind of its last journey. It's a race prepped car, I believe. And we're gonna tow it. I think that's what they told me. We're gonna tow this car. We're gonna do a towing video from Portland, Oregon, all the way up to Colorado. And we're gonna see how the F-150 tows. If we get the F-150, we'll also take it to Fully Charged Live if we get the F-150. Have there been any dealer shenanigans with my Lightning experience so far? Blub, blub, blub. Sorry. No, except one. Our dealership changed hands without telling you where. I'm sure that there's now someone in the greater Portland area who goes, oh, I know who your dealer is. That's fine. If you have figured it out, please don't tell anybody. We would like to keep that a little bit private, but there was a recent dealership in the greater Portland area that changed hands. It went from being owned by one dealership chain to being owned by another, and for a couple of weeks for a couple of months we had no information about our truck. The guy who helped me with the original order has now moved and gone to become a manager at another Ford dealership. But other than that, I have been told that the price should not be raised. Now, whether the new owner honors that or not, I don't know. No spoilers, Laura. Oh, so appreciative that Captain Pike's getaway cabin uses wind power. Yeah, that is nice. Ask Linus Tech Tips for some truck fun, and then the air planning some mountain LAN party. Yeah, I actually thought about okay, I don't know. I suck at the reality is that we make a lot of content. Here's the problem we are at with Transport Evolved. Unlike a lot of channels, we do best when we make content every day. When we don't make content, we slip off the recommendation screen and then nobody ever watches our stuff. And every time we've tried to cut back to making 1 or 2 or 3 videos a week, we've been severely penalized to the point that we've lost money. And so the only way we've been able to keep things keeping on is to do videos every day. When we do videos every day, we tend to do pretty well. And so therefore, I really need to not be making videos every day. We as a company, every time I'm sat in front of a computer and I'm writing a script, or I'm filming something in the other room, or I'm helping edit something, that's time that I can't grow the business, and we're really struggling with that at the moment. Just knowing the right people, knowing the right things, and I struggle with advertising. I suck at advertising. I suck at a lot of other things. Hello, Ian. Are we still live? Yes. Yes, we are. Electric Viking, 1,000 videos a year, guys. The machine. Yeah, but he's going to get burnout. Guy's going to get burnout. I predict he's going to be one of those channels that burns out pretty darned quickly. I think that a lot of content creators in this space are starting to do that. And so anyway, you know, there's loads of stuff that I need to be able to do. Like, we've got a load of content. I don't believe that is the Ian. No, I don't believe that is the Ian. There's loads of content that we create on a regular basis that is fairly easy to make. And then there are things like reviews, which take a lot of time and planning. We've got a car on review right now. I drove it literally yesterday for about 2.5 hours. And then from there, we did, you know, a little bit better. We also... Have you thought of getting someone... sorry. The Electric Viking. Yeah, his voice has been sounding burnt out of late. Have you thought about getting someone that's good at the things you just said you suck at? Yeah, I have. The problem is you got to pay people. Right? And if I'm not paying myself, I can't bring someone else on board as well. So we have a situation where we're getting growing pains. Okay. Like I say, if every single person who watched if every single person who watched this channel donated $1 a month, which is $12 a year, and I appreciate that not everybody could afford that. If everybody donated $1 a month who could afford it, I don't want, like, honestly, I don't like the idea of having, while I appreciate everybody who donates large amounts of money to the channel, I would much rather have more people donating less than a few people donating a lot. It's that $12 a year from every person who watches this, we'd actually be able to have a proper studio. We'd have a proper production crew. Michael would actually be able to have an assistant. We'd be able to have a sound person. We'd be able to have a writer. We'd be able to have someone to help with marketing and social media. But we're not trendy. We're small. We're a small channel, and everything we've done to this point has been off the back of hard graft. We have not spent any money. I don't think we've ever advertised Transport Evolved. I think we may have done once or twice back in like 2012, but we haven't spent money on advertising. We generally don't do that. Loophole says, Ian, unpaid interns. So this is the problem. In the United States, or certainly in Oregon, you can have an intern. That's fantastic. I love the idea of having an intern. You can have an intern. The intern can be doing work at the company. But here's the catch. You cannot have an intern do work for free for your channel that has a material benefit to the channel. So it is illegal for me to get an unpaid intern in here, have intern edit a video, write a script, bring in whatever, and us bring in money without us paying them, because that then is effectively slave labor, I guess. And that is not cool. So there we go. Reg Barkley doing Janeway's voice. We need dollars, people. Thank God it is illegal. Yeah, I am glad it is as well. Oh, thank you, Lightning Rod. I really appreciate that. That is really, and thank you, Orlando. Thank you, Orlando Terrazas. Monthly supporter for $5. Go, Nikki. Thank you very much, everybody. And that's kind of the point. You know, if we get small numbers of donations, it really makes things easier. The new employee, GPT-3, your own version of data. Is that with or without Brent Spiner's excellent enunciation? Something I really love. I love watching. Thank you very much, Hans, for your modified donation there. You've been watching too many movies, yeah. Why should volunteer work be illegal? I mean, okay, right. So volunteer work is great. I run a charity, okay? Somehow I run a charity alongside doing everything else. I don't have much spare time. I'm one of those people who can't just sit and do nothing. And that's okay. Volunteer work is fine. If you're doing stuff for charity, it's very easy to just go, donate my funds to something. But it's much harder when it's a business. Are you doing volunteer work in a business? It's the same reason why we can't accept money from people without charging, without the whole VAT or tax thing, because we would be circumventing the laws. And volunteer work means that, the only volunteers we have are community mods. They are allowed to do their community mods because they are offering to do that themselves. Thank you very much, Matthias, for becoming our 1,264th Patreon supporter. You are awesome. Reginald Barclay, yeah, the mad scientist in Star Trek. Amazing actor plays him. You will be familiar. You will recognize him from the A-Team. Let's leave it at that. Reg is one of my favorite characters. I just come out and say Reginald Barclay is one of my favorite characters, both in TNG and in Voyager. He's just he's a flawed character, and one of the cool things I love about Star Trek, especially the more recent Star Treks, is that they introduced Dwight Schultz. Thank you, the actor's name. One of the cool things about that character and that actor is that they bring a vulnerability to this wonderful new world that I think we can all on some level connect with. So that is something that is very wonderful. Dryland, thank you for becoming our 1,265th Patreon supporter. I need 10 more people for this live stream to become patrons and help us just push up our support. Just $1 a month is all I'm asking. I feel like PBS now. It would really help. Q is also a really awesome character. Q is played by John Delancey Jr. John Delancey Sr. was an oboist, very famous oboist, and so the guy who plays Q, his father, was a very famous oboist, and he premiered one of my favorite oboe concertos of all time, which is the Strauss Oboe Concerto. I sang it really badly, but there you go. Tom, thank you for becoming a new YouTube member. You are an absolute gent. Thank you very much. This is what we're talking about. Q is the biggest error of Star Trek. Thank you, Sean, for becoming a new member. So we've got 8 more people to go. But yeah, he was a great great oboist, and so John Delancey is Q. That's my little connection to oboe in my head. So there we go. Thank you for joining me for this live Sunday musing. I know it's different to what we normally do. If you are not subscribed to Transport Evolved Take 2, I would love it if you'd go over to Transport Evolved Take 2 and subscribe. Transport Evolved Take 2 has some fun things like Kate's behind the scenes stuff with her Morris Minor. Also, the other stuff. You've lost me. I hope I'm back. Am I back? Let me know if I am indeed back. I believe I am. And EJD says, my thoughts. Oh, we're back on the... I hope Canoe can survive. Yeah. Though I can see a large automaker buying them for tech and development that is already completed. I just don't think that Canoe is going to survive. Christine, thank you very much. In take 2, you are here. Yes. No, we lost you to Layla Land. Layla Land? John Delancey, I once met him at Rose City Comic Con. Are you a local, Dan? Good to see you. John Delancey, he met him at Rose City Comic Con. He was more than patient with me. Well, you know, you might meet someone else at Rose City Comic Con in the future once we're actually out of COVID. A certain young lady is desperate to go out and meet new people. She has not been out for a year now, and she went to an event in November last year. Was the last time she was out and about. She needs a bath as well, but she is definitely gagging to come out and meet new people. She's just not really very good at being stuck at home. And for those who've heard me talk about my characters before, she sits inside my head and talks to me sometimes and tells me off. The original of Potential, La La Land. Question of the day: what does Nikki think of the film Shine? I haven't really watched it. I kind of didn't watch a lot of films when I was a kid because I was too busy playing the piano all the time. So I kind of missed it when it came out, and it's never actually one that I do. Yeah, live in Vancouver, Washington. Met you at an EV event down south wearing Queenie. Yeah, Queenie is a border collie. She is a giant border collie. She is a time traveling border collie who got shot with a blunderbuss by her master when she was just a normal dog about 190 years ago. Her master, who had a bit of a predilection for hunting with blunderbusses, in the steampunk world, by the way. She's a steampunk character. She was hit with a blunderbuss. Her master, distraught that he had killed his favorite dog, took her back to his estate where he tried to resurrect her, as he had done for his late wife and their unborn son decades earlier. And he finally figured out how to resurrect his dog, but he did so by replacing her broken heart that he'd shot with a deer's heart. And he'd traveled the world trying to learn of all these magical spells and things. He brought his dog back to life using a bit of dark magic, voodoo magic, and Queenie came out the other end. Queenie Octavia Christina Deerheart to all her friends. Or Queenie Octavia Christina Deerheart, dear. Oh yes, lovely to meet you. She is. I love playing her, but I would hate to know her in real life. She is she's to put it bluntly, a piss take of all the hereditary lords and ladies in the UK. She is incredibly arrogant. She thinks the world revolves around her. She's very wonderful to children. She loves children. But everybody else, she's kind of a bit rude too. She's charming and rude at the same time. She tends to put people down. Think drag queen meets Hyacinth Bouquet meets Mrs. Doubtfire, and you're kind of on the right track. How does Ghost react to Queenie? He just basically thought he's not actually ever met her in full costume. I've only ever put the head on to see what he would do. And he was just like, oh, it's another dog. Hi, this is cool. So that is, yeah, she is a snob and she likes gin. The people who are watching now are clearly the long-term fans who know who I'm talking about. Yeah, she doesn't get out very much. This is her on the back of my phone. But she's also she's an old-fashioned character. She doesn't like all of the nonsense that's going on in the UK right now. Neither do I. That's the benefit of having a character that lives in your head. They can be part of you and you can be part of them. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for everybody who's joined on to support. It really does mean a lot to me to know that you are wanting Transport Evolved to succeed. And you have helped us get ever so close to our next milestone. We are still a ways off. But hopefully we will be at a point in the future where we will make the world a better place. And thank you very much to Neot, who has just become our 1,266th Patreon supporter. We are $1 short of of our next goal. Let's put it like that. And you thought Hyacinth Bucket was a drag queen? No, she's actually played by a really wonderful woman called Patricia Routledge, who I think is still with us. I don't think Patricia Routledge has died. She was a very wonderful, amazing character, and a wonderful. She was actually a singer. She actually can sing. She's a trained singer. The actress is a trained singer. Yeah, so she's absolutely awesome. The rooster making noise. Yeah, that's Charlie. He's not allowed out right now, as you said earlier on in the thing. And she is. No, you meant that figuratively. I just read things. That there's just so many different chats happening right now. It's difficult to figure out what's what. But yes. As the wonderful Stefan says, push that like. Yes, push that like, and we will see where we go from there. And I was actually joking to someone the other day, if the F-150 Lightning cannot happen because medical bills are too high, maybe I'll just have to go and get another City L. I saw a City L for sale. That's how serious I am about getting another one. I saw a City L for sale in Germany for €3,000. And I was like, I wonder how much that would cost to ship to America. Do you know that you can have mobile-free email via satellite? This is a potentially lifesaver in the middle of nowhere. Yes. Yes, I did. And thank you to Mark for modifying your wonderful your wonderful support. Thank you so much. And we have now gone over our next in fact, we are now bang on our next milestone. So thank you. Between you all, you've actually helped increase our. Let me work this out in my head. Give me a second. I'm going to cheat. Let's work this out really quickly because my brain is a little bit. You've actually helped us increase our Patreon support by just under 5%. So thank you for everybody who has supported us today. It's just under 5%. It's like 4.5%, but it's helped. It will help. It will help a lot. And it means if we can increase it by another 10%, then I don't have to worry about things as much. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody. Yes, shipping to the US, no one that I know the price of. Planning to bring one over and do a road trip in their City L. Yeah, I need to find out more about this. Maybe I will have to get more advertising. Maybe I just need to do advertising. Maybe we should just do advertising for Raid Shadow Legends and stuff. I'm too principled, clearly, as someone told me this week. Anyway, thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining us Sunday Musing. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, wherever you are. And as always, keep evolving.